Madam, are we ready to start? Check. Not a bit. Chinese friend returned. Oh, yes. So, I think we'll get started. Is this one here? Yeah. Now, my friends, we were discussing this afternoon the nature of the body. And I tried to point out to you a very curious and to me perfectly marvelous paradox. Namely, that the very reasons why the body has in past times been considered ephemeral and worthless are the very reasons which ally the body to the realm of spirit, which has always been considered to be the realm that is most valuable. In other words, the impermanence, the fluidity of the body is that which renders it most akin to the most spiritual and discarnate of the arts. Music, poetry, dancing, as distinct from the more sculptural arts, in which you might say spirit has become most allied to matter because imprisoned in the most permanent and solid sort of form. But you see, there is nothing very solid about the body. That is the objection to the body on the part of spiritual people who consider themselves allies of what is not solid. And so what we are beginning to see then is this, that if you would understand what spirit is and get as close as you can to reality, you will carefully observe that which has been considered the most illusory and the most ephemeral, the impermanent physical form of things. The motto here is the stone that the builders rejected, the same has become the head of the corner. Now, let me first of all illustrate this by giving you a sort of analogy of all this in the history of ideas, and in particular in the history of politics. If we look back to the 17th century and examine what infuriated the status quo most, we shall find that it was, on the one hand, deviation from certain religious dogmas, and on the other hand, the expression of democratic ideas in politics. There are various ways, you see, in which every society has in its bosom people whom it must regard as the very devil. The most awful sort of person you could think of. Put yourself back into the frame of mind of an English gentleman in the reign of Queen Elizabeth, or James I. We're now back at the turn of the 16th to the 17th centuries. and consider yourself then as this gentleman a solid and respectable citizen. You are just in such a position as anyone living today who is a professional man, or perhaps a respected college professor, or owner of a hardware store in some part of town. To such an Elizabethan gentleman living at the end of the 16th century, a Puritan, a Quaker type person, they weren't actually Quakers yet, an Anabaptist, was something as repugnant and horrible to him as a dope fiend is to us. And yet it was at the point of what was for those times deviltry. It was from somewhere within that kind of crummy spot in the culture that there arose a very, very creative thing. We may look back today and say the Puritans, went too far and had certain most undesirable aspects. But on the other hand, they achieved certain results which we now consider to be very valuable. But there is always, in every social order, a point that is most reprehensible. And you must always try and find out where and what that is. What horrifies the present order most is a sign, a pointing finger, to the place from which the next shoot will grow. As you can see when you study a plant, that there are, as it were, certain special soft spots on it. And that's where another stalk is rising. That's the heart. That's the inner center where the life is most vibrant, and therefore tends to be most squishy. And though, at the same time, people who like things firmly structured, who like to know where they are, who like to be really secure, when they're confronted with what is squishy, they say, take it away. See? There are some people who envisage the end of all things, death, in terms of ashes. Other people who envisage it in terms of a horrid slime. And these are two interestingly different character types. Anyway, I leave that to something to meditate on. So, in order then to look out for the point from which something really important will come, we must always look somewhere in the area of what is most hated and most feared. In any society. And this is the reason why all traditions of liberation, illumination, cosmic consciousness, and so on, it's the reason why they have all been what is called esoteric, not open to the general public, something a little bit cautious about. It is because there is an inner correspondence between what is initiatory, what leads a person to liberation on the one extreme, and between what is on the other extreme, taboo and obscene. Both, you see, are hidden. Obscene has been interpreted as meaning off-scene. What is done, in other words, back of the stage, where there is scaffolding holding up the scenery, which is not supposed to be looked at, where there are dressing rooms where people transform themselves from their everyday personalities and clothes and roles into the roles of the drama. Although it's of interest that in Chinese drama, the prop man walks about in plain view on the stage, but dressed in black to indicate that he's not supposed to be looked at. Now, do you see here the parallel? I've been trying to show that we find the spiritual in the unexpected place where the flesh is most fleshly, that is to say, impermanent, momentary. Now, where else, you see, is the flesh most fleshly? And where is the spiritual unexpected? Obviously, you see, in the realm of what is taboo. For our culture, that has meant the sexual. It's a question whether it's going to mean it very much longer. Our taboo is shifting to some other place, I think. But it was there, you see, that it is in being sexual that for our culture, at any rate, and for some others, the body is most bodily. And that is why there is so much squeamishness about its sexual function. So, this is why there is always attached to the breakthrough from the finite to the infinite, from the world of bondage to the world of liberation, samsara to nirvana, why there is always attached to it an element of the taboo, the dangerous, the something or other you had better not fiddle with. The thing that if you get mixed up in it and you don't know what you're doing, the most awful consequences are liable to redound to you. Let us suppose that I am God and that I am playing a game, which is that I want you to know that you're really me. And yet, you don't deserve to know unless you've got as much nerve as I have. And so I'm going to put you down as far as I can. See? And say, I have set things up so that you have to choose between absolute life and absolute horror. The most appalling stakes imaginable rest upon your choice. Excruciating bliss forever, or excruciating agony forever. That's the way we set things up. And I, the Lord your God, before whom you are really nothing, require that you love me. Utter and total sincerity. To the abandonment of all concern for your own skin, body. And I have, as a matter of fact, going to have to reveal to you that you are going to be obfuscated and blocked in your attempts to do this by a peculiar angel called the devil, who is of infinite subtlety. For he walketh about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. you better a baby. And little man doesn't know quite what to do. He's very, very impressed. But like you are when you're a little child and your father abominates at you. And little man realizes that it's very difficult to love a father like that. He comes on too strong. But he knows he should. And then he begins to wonder about that devil. Maybe that was father too. Because father sometimes wears one face and sometimes wears another face. And you're never quite sure which it is. And he thinks one day, maybe I'll call his bluff. And say, now, wait a minute. Aren't you both the same person? In other words, a child might occasionally have the nerve to say to its parents, you tell me that if I love you, I will obey you. But you know very well that that's unreasonable. There are two sides of you talking to me at cross purposes. Very few children have the brains to point that out. See? Sometimes it gets through, but mostly they're bamboozled. Because, why are they bamboozled? If you point out to your parents, and you're a little thing this high, and you point out that they're asking you for something contradictory, they're going to say to you, you must not criticize your elders and betters. Or words to that effect. So comments not allowed. Now it's the same with the Lord God. To pull the challenge, you see, to say, really, you know, I've come to the conclusion that the devil is your own left hand. And that you've stirred up all this trouble, and evil, and so on, so that you can play against it. Thereby create something. Say, no, I'm afraid to say that. I'm afraid really to go the whole way and look the Lord in the eye. Say, you rascal. I'm afraid. I don't know whether he hasn't got a hand that is far better than mine. See, the great game of bluff. And actually, of course, the Lord is calling you. You see, that's the meaning of vocation. He's calling you to call his bluff. It's the most terrible moment, because he has made it appear that the choice, the wrong choice, will mean the most appalling penalty, imagine. And if you can call that bluff, you see, at that very moment of really calling the bluff, you become one with him. That's the game of the mystic. And he has, in this sense, to attain the very height of heaven, he has to become ultimately evil. He has to risk the eternal penalty. This is what Goethe had in the back of his mind in Faust. Which is why in Goethe's version, Faust is redeemed in the end. In Mahler's version, Faust is damned. He hasn't seen through the whole meaning of the Faust thing. Patriarchs, prophets, martyrs, saints, angels, archangels, cherubim, seraphim, they all put on this face. Don't you dare. You little bastard, don't you dare. And you say, come on. And everybody will tell you, see, that's proud. That's awful. You. It's like, you see, this is the way elders put children down. Your children should be seen and not heard. And go away. And often you see this is just because parents, like male cats, can't stand to have children around. They're a nuisance. Often, though it's done lovingly enough, the child's breeding in good manners. And the adult doesn't really mean that it wants the child to disappear, vanish, and drop dead. But simply that if they're ebullient, they're too noisy, and if you've got a headache, that's terrible. But this is a very, very important thing, you see, to have the real courage that you can know that deep down, the sea may drown you, the fire may burn you, and the germs and the cancers may eat you up. But deep down, you know, I am really the Word. The world will go on. The tree will grow though the leaves fall and recede. You know this. You know it right here. And if you know it right here, the big scarabug can never quite put you out of place. You see, all contests whatsoever are fundamentally based on this. It's like staring somebody down. And you will notice, if you explore the game of staring somebody down, that there is a very, very queer borderline that's quite indefinable between hostility and love. You don't know whether you look away from another person's eyes because they are more powerful than you, in the sense of they're more honest, they're more at peace with themselves, have a better conscience, or whether it becomes too pleasurable to look at them. You see? There's an ambiguity. Human eyes are very beautiful things. Really, that's extraordinary. So I commend to your consideration, therefore, whatever in our society today is regarded with most repugnance. Watch it. That may be the growing edge or the growing center from which something really important will arise. Don't forget, the yellow robe of the Buddhist monks was originally the striped uniform of the criminal. Don't forget that the company which Jesus kept was regarded as a bunch of alcoholics and barflies and petty politicians of the most corrupt sort. Nice people did not associate with us. And that the old Chinese Taoists were regarded pretty much as bums and hobos, lived in the mountains. Now, I'm just taking a step back. I want you to remember then that I have put two ideas in equivalence and parallel to each other. On the one hand, it is the very corruptibility and impermanence of the body that allies it most closely to the liveliness of the spirit. Number two, it is by a kind of parallel association. At the point of most corruption, or what is seen as most corruption, that you are liable to find the spring of life, fenced off by all sorts of prohibitions. Because you see, whatever is living, the living center is always guarded. There are always prickles around it, you see. Where what you will find in a plant, you're also liable to find its equivalent in the human mind. But the trouble is, you see, don't misinterpret it. Don't think that the prohibitions are there against the life, trying to destroy it. They're really there protecting it. You must understand them that way, and then they all appear in a new light. Now there follows then another parallel. We've had really put out two now, and then there comes a third. There's still another unlikely place. Generally speaking, all development and growth and success in the acquisition of spiritual power and wisdom is transferred to a glorious future. Into which one will have to climb step by step by step in the process of addition of qualities, acquisition of powers. But when we take this road of the unexpected, we shall find then that the maximum, the summum bonum, the moment of illumination, will lie in the place where it would of course be least expected of all, which is immediately now. After all, immediately now, if you are on a spiritual quest of some kind, is the place you're trying to be away from. That is what we are trying to leave behind. What we are is the old man, the very thing we don't want to be, the thing we're confessing is awful. And so we want to be rid of the old man. But you see, this is the trouble. I was told a lovely story by Howard Thurman. Maybe you know who Howard Thurman is. He was a very great Negro minister in San Francisco. He's now dean of the chapel at Boston University. But he said he once went to India, and at a certain university met a professor of Hindu philosophy with whom he spent the whole morning in discussion from 9 until 12. They simply sat and they talked to Blue Street, all the discussions, differences between Hinduism and Christianity. And at the end of it, they had to get up and go somewhere for lunch. And Howard Thurman pulled himself up, and his legs were stiff. And The Hindu said to him, "What were you laughing at?" Because apparently he had smiled as he got up. And Howard Thurman said, "Well, I didn't realize I did." But he said, "As a matter of fact, you're laughing too. What are you laughing at?" The Hindu said, "You say first." And Howard Thurman said, "You know, well, I will tell you why I was laughing. So I suddenly saw you looking at me from behind yourself. And I realized we've just been fencing with each other all morning. I've been trying to make out over you that my Christian tradition is a little bit better than your Hindu tradition." And the Hindu said, "Yeah. Well, let's be wiser this afternoon." And from that moment, the difference of Hindu and Christian became totally unimportant between them. Now, what happened? Why did they laugh at each other in that way? Why was there a glint in the eye? Because one of them had recognized the old rogue in himself and in the other. The common human, "Sire, I'm a poor fellow that would live. You know, I got to make my living and I got to prove my thing. And I mean, you got to prove your thing, and you've got your racket and I've got my racket," and so on. And they just, that little smile, they saw the monkey looking out from behind the other fellow. And that became, you see, the very, very basis of endearment. I see you're a rascal too, and there can be honor therefore among thieves. And that's what it means, you see, to be a truly penitent man. It doesn't mean, you see, that you are a person who hates yourself. You're a person who loves, who knows that I'm a scallywag, that you're a scallywag, and that therefore we have the difficulty of being alive in common. Where is the next meal going to come from? Etc. Now, you must be very careful of this, because there are people who are cynics with the object of making everybody appear equally disgusting. Because they want to say how much they hate people, and how awful people are. And on the other hand, there are people who are cynics, because it's of the nature of humor to be one. It's not without, I think, reason and significance that humor is the same sound as human. Because humor is laughing at yourself in its profoundest sense. And to be able to laugh at yourself, you have to be able to stand beside yourself and look at yourself. And that is the essential capacity of man. That is the essential capacity, the feedback character of the human brain. That it observes itself, that it knows it's thinking, and when it's happy, it knows that it's happy, and when it knows that it knows. And that's very complicated. And it leads to anxiety. Because when you know that you know that you won't know. That you'll be dead one day. Now, the only possible alternative to anxiety is laughter. It is the same pulse as the pulse of trembling and anxiety, but it has a different meaning to it. Anxiety is one meaning to this trembling, laughter is another meaning to this trembling. And laughter comes when you see that the universe is not set up to scare you. It looks as if it is, but it isn't really. That's why when you see the terrible images of Shiva with 10 arms, holding skulls and knives and bells and billies and clubs and things, one hand was like this, which means don't be afraid. This is a great joke. We are roaring through the universe to scare ourselves out of our wits. So this, you see, this element of I go out as far as I can on a bet. Do you see? It's the essence of life. I'll never forget, one morning I was in some little resort town in Japan. Very early I was sitting on the veranda looking down at the beach, and there was a concrete breakwater going right down. The water was sloshing up and sloshing up, and the little boys were constantly running like sandpipers up and down this concrete slab, seeing who could get farthest out without getting wet as the water washed in. And you see, all human beings are really doing that. How far out can I get without losing the game? See? How far out can I get? And a lot of people working, how far out can I get? You know, that's what keeps your muscles in shape. Because all these cells are wondering how far out they can get, and they are succeeding just so far and failing just so far. And so you get a vibrant energy, a line. Because the cells of air on this side, or whatever they are, see how far out can we get? Everything is right on the edge. And so, in the same way, the ultimate challenge is thrown down, as it were, by the Lord God, which seeks to outclass you in your nerve and make you a miserable wretch. Now, it's a very difficult challenge to respond to, because you can do one of two things, when they're both wrong. You can yield, you give in, and say, yes, dear Lord, I entirely agree with you. I'm a miserable worm. Or else, you could stand there and say, you go to your own place. Don't you dare interfere with me. And you're coming on too strong. The Lord will look back and say, that was too much. You didn't need to do all that. Good heavens, you know I really love you. But there's a middle way. And the middle way is when, you see, you don't, you know that either of these things you do will be the wrong thing. Those are the only two things you can do. You can't do nothing. You can't just stand there, because that's doing something. You know, if you don't decide to do something, the decision goes the other way. You see, you either, you can vote for someone, but if you don't vote for him, in a way you vote against him. That's democracy. And so you can't do that. And then when you realize that, I mean, this is like accepting life or not accepting life. It's the immediate decision of everybody sitting here at this moment. Is you is or is you isn't. And you can't decide, because there's no way of making up your mind. There's no way of withdrawing from the challenge either. I can't decide, and yet I can't withdraw from the necessity of making a decision. You know, everybody's just like that now. So, this is the full intensity of the way in which life scares itself out of not realizing who it is. And that's the way, you see, that's the way the world is kept going. We all say, now, supposing we didn't have to eat, supposing we really never got hungry, And therefore be no incentive to build anything, do anything, cultivate fields, etc., etc., etc. That incentive, all right, wouldn't be there, so we wouldn't do it. But we do it. In other words, we do make all the forms of life, of agriculture, of human existence, because there's the scare behind us. So that we mustn't stop. And we run. And so life comes along. And it subsides a little bit, and then again it goes. And it's really us scaring ourselves, but we've forgotten that we have another voice behind ourselves that can scare ourselves, you see, into doing this. So then, that's why boo, and everything to do with it, is the frown of the Lord God. Don't you penetrate the secret. Don't you dare take the kingdom of heaven by storm. Don't you dare suggest that the devil is my own left hand. Because boo! See? But all this he's really saying to himself. As the amoeba is the fundamental form of life, which divides itself and divides itself and divides itself. So the fundamental nature of the unity of the universe is that it says two, 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 which in Latin means you. So then, you see the final point then. It all simply comes to this. We're there. We always are. Every minute of life is the point of arrival. The absolute point of arrival, the which than which there is no whicher. And it's unbelievable. But very obvious if one is able to stop and look at it. And just as everything is done to scare you off from pointing out that the devil is the Lord's left hand, so everything possible is done to scare you off by yourself from seeing that this now is it. That this body is the body of Buddha, that at this very minute, without any preparation, without any dulling oneself up, powdering one's spiritual nose, or anything like that, you are right in the lotus seat of the highest Buddha of the universe. But you would think, can I possibly admit that? Wouldn't it be auto-copied? So you have the same alternative. Once you read it again, I'm going to say, no, I'm very, very, very much a beginner on the spiritual path. Indeed, I'm not even sure that I'm a beginner. It's a minus quantity that gets to the beginning occasionally, but mostly slips back from it. And those heights are not for me, not for several lives yet. Or you can say, like a psychoanalyst, not a psychiatrist. I met 2 years ago, walked in his office and said, you know, I'm a Buddha. I'm enlightened. I really seriously think so. And I got a funny feeling, as if he had just a little bit overdone it. So you see, that's one extreme, the other extreme. And there's the middle way. Which is, you see, once you really get into the here and now, you don't claim anything, you don't reject anything. It's just like that, right there. And so that's the point of absolute body. Some of you may have seen Norman Brown's book, Life Against Death. It's worth reading, especially the end of it, with great care. At one point he makes the astonishing remark that eternity, the eternal, is the realm of the absolute body. And when you sum up all the things which we've seen, our absolute body, we found it was first of all a transient, completely momentary. Secondly, the ecstatic, the thing subject to intense pleasure or intense pain. Thirdly, the corrupt. What is therefore in a way most feared, what seems to be most threatening, the point at which life is ultimate fertilizer, the creative stink. You see? And fourthly, the momentary at the one end connects with the momentary at the other, that it is always, whatever is bodily, is immediately now. There are no past body, there is no future body. There are past ideas and future ideas, thoughts, but whatever is bodily is always immediately present. That is why there is no future, there is no death for the body. Eternal life is the life of the body. Death, the only thing that is capable of death is the abstract, the individual, the ego, the ideas imposed upon the body. They will come to an end. But the body is always present. So we'll have an intermission and more questions. Session will be quite brief because we'll go on almost immediately, and then the refreshments will be wine at the end. Miss Clark or Mr. Borland?
Is Bowman the name I missed
Borland.
earlier?
No, it's apparently Borland, not Bowman. Well, who wants to start the ball rolling?
I wanted to ask you the forbidden fruit in the Genesis is a form of what you're talking about. I mean, the prohibition against eating the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In other words, by prohibiting it, it makes it more important.
Of course it does, yes.
Well, in that case, you didn't finish with the sin. The consequence of this act is all the praise and the likeness of toil.
Yes.
And you integrate that into the
Well, first of all, it seems pretty obvious that as you say, the prohibition of the tree is asking for trouble. It would have been a better gamble not to mention it at all. For two reasons. One, it might never have been noticed and nobody might ever have thought of eating its fruit. If they had thought of it, then the eating of it would have been without blame, since it wouldn't have involved any disobedience. So since the real sin of eating the fruit was not eating the fruit, but disobedience, you see, of man's first disobedience, is what Milton writes. And many other theologians will put it this way. There was no real poison in the fruit as such. The poison consisted in the disobedience. So why give the commandment in the first place? Well, obviously, God is not malicious and simply absurd. There is a deeply buried joke here.
What really they discovered that they had the power to disobey?
Well, that's important too. Rollo May once said that a child begins to grow from the first time it says no.
I practiced much after that.
One has to have a won't as well as a will.
Alan,
Well, you finished.
I haven't quite finished, no.
I mean, about the toilet.
The toilet is the next thing.
Yeah.
And that goes along with the entry of death. In other words, the moment this thing has happened, play becomes work. You occasionally find a rare soul, there are very few of them. There are people who are immaculately conceived without original sin. For whom, ladies, for example, for whom the fundamental drudgeries of housework are exceedingly pleasant. I was talking to, just a day or two ago, to a girl who loves to scrub floors. Because for her, it's just a gas, it's a swinging thing. It's kind of exercise, it's a dance. See? And all dishwashings and things like that are a kind of a dance, you see. And they're just an expression, and she loves it. So she is still in the age of innocence. She hasn't eaten of the fruit of the tree. Or else she regained paradise. I don't know which she did. No, she hasn't had a lobotomy. No, she's really very intelligent, but she just still in paradise, because it has not. What has really happened is this: life is turned into unparadise. When we say of the things that we do to go on living, you must do them. Now, you see, in order to go on living, it is necessary that you have a head, and at least a heart, which pumps the blood. So if I say to you, to go on living, you must circulate your blood. Have I given you a commandment, or did I simply express a condition of affairs? I expressed a condition of affairs. If I said to you, you must circulate your blood, you would say, well, how do you do that? You see, I mean, it does it, doesn't it? And so we say, in the same vein, almost, in order to be a member of society, you must love people. Is that a commandment or a condition? It's always taken as a commandment. And therefore people try to love each other, and they have hypocrisy, because phony love. Now, you have to decide this with other human beings. Do you love me or don't you? And don't understand. There's no blame attached if you don't. If you don't want to stick around me, there's no blame attached. You can go somewhere else. It's a big world. And on the other hand, if we do like each other, or even love each other, say so. It's simple. It's much more loving to tell a person you don't love than to pretend that you do. It saves a hell of a lot of trouble.
Also, Alan, another question. Do you love me or don't? And if you don't, are you going to learn to love me?
Maybe you don't want to.
No? If you want
Yeah. If you want to, yeah. May stick around, we may get to like each other. But you've got to be honest, Sue, about that. And
Could I put in something here?
Yes, please.
Practice this back when I was blocking, and then if you don't love me, let's see what's in the way. Because if you just don't love me, but love other people, all right, forget about it, that's enough. But if you don't love anybody,
well, I
and I'm suffering,
I
let's see
agree
what's
with
in the
you.
way.
that something may be in the way.
And how does that? How do you type
But
it?
the difficulty is this, that if somebody has come to the point of saying, well, I don't love you, and I say to him, well, maybe something's in the way, what I'm saying to him is, you haven't really been honest with me. You really do love me, but there is some blockage in you, which has made you unable to express it. Now, I'm inclined to feel that that will be deeply experienced by the other person as a sort of trick. And it's not really letting you out. Whereas if I say to him, well, you don't love me, that's all right, it's your privilege, he'd feel better.
That's a one-to-one person, but I mean, one person goes to the therapist,
Yeah.
saying, I can't love anyone,
Yeah.
or I think I love people, but they hate me.
Yeah.
And you find that what they consider love is extremely false.
Mhm.
How do you fit in to what you're saying, the thing that a therapist hopefully might do? Or would you say there's nothing to do?
Oh, I would put it on a different basis somehow. Let me think. I would like to hold a conversation with a person like that about how much we hated people. I had a very, very funny conversation indeed with a person I was with the other day. We were driving through a particularly depressing part of Massachusetts, and he was born around there. No, he was born in Philadelphia, and we were discussing depressing parts of the world. And I cited North London, which has some affinities with Philadelphia and Baltimore because of these endless rows of joint houses. And we discussed the grey atmosphere, and we went into something that sounded at first like a terrific condemnation of human beings for having ever put up with these places, and also for living in them. And then suddenly we both said to each other, isn't it enjoyable to discuss this kind of thing? How we loathe it. And he said, yeah, and I brought up the subject of what's called topophilia. Topophilia is a love of places, literally translated. But it's especially a love of places that are in a peculiar way awful. That are so ugly that they're cute. You know what I mean? And so, well, you see what I mean?
May I interpolate something here?
Yes, please.
The person Tony is hypothetically referring to, seems to me the first question is, what the devil is wrong with you that you don't want to stop? If you don't love anyone, since you're a part of anyone or of everyone, what's so unlovable about you?
Well, there are various ways, aren't there, of getting to that point. You arrive at that point in various ways. Because you see, if I'm talking with this person and we both realize how much we hate all sorts of things, and then finally, by a little twist, I bring around the conversation to how we both enjoyed hating things so much, have met each other, we at last have established a positive relationship on the basis of, well, you rascal.
Yes, well, he's hating himself is obviously the game that he's playing with himself. If he hated himself, he would be non-existent.
Yes, if you really did.
Mhm.
Yes.
Why couldn't Hazel be just another name for fighting? You might enjoy fighting.
Yes, indeed. A lot of people don't know they're alive unless they're fighting.
Remember, I had a dream once in which something, there was some angel or presence went around with this kind of a squirt gun, perfume thing, and everything in squirt would disappear. And I said, don't squirt me with goodness.
Did he?
I would disappear.
Alan, the peculiar impression that I got as you were talking earlier about this business of what we go through to live and so on, is very simply that all of these gyrations and efforts, what we call living, are for the purpose of continuing to exist. Or they serve this end, say we.
Well, I don't feel that that's fundamentally true. I feel that the nature of life, of reality, is basically playful. That it happens out of no necessity to happen. Now that is another way. We were talking this afternoon, earlier on, of the fact, our increasing discovery that things don't have to be supported, that the universe floats of itself, and that it is really independent. Or so, in a similar way,
I think I'm making a confusion here, because I think so often in terms of the meanings to the neurotic person.
That's a problem, isn't it? Because obviously there is an almost infinite possibility of anything that anyone says being twisted. And if one goes around almost indefinitely qualifying what you say, so that it shall be adapted for the need of every possible sort of individual, you get incommunicando, because you really have to make so many reservations that it becomes increasingly unclear what you said. Now, the only thing to do is this, isn't it? That I will talk it one way, and you will talk it another. And that by this means we get a suitable division of labor.
Differently, saying before about this person administrator has never been able to tell anyone, including himself, then perhaps the question to ask is, what fear prevents you from settling down and being aware of yourself? Well, as Buddha, as universe, as realized man, what size your sense of reality? But if you could find that you know yourself to be you real, you alive, you whatever you want to call it, then everything else will be taken care of. I mean, you wouldn't have to say, now I'm going to know this person or that person.
Yes, that's right. I think you're quite right. There's a sort of a basic thing where you get down, as it were, to the ultimate faucet, and it comes through the central pipe and bifurcates through all the others, which have the names of the various things, virtues, love, and so on.
You don't want to sum it, doesn't matter.
Right.
everybody differently. As a person, can you help them to see why or to stop hating themselves? Then I think we
Yes, well, I think, isn't there, no?
playfulness that you're talking about, the spontaneity, the just take care of the love part, pretty well that stuff.
Yes, I think that's true. I think what you say about hating yourself is hating those things which we've identified as the body.
Or the ego, or the facade, the image. What is up?
And it's almost always really a parental or early substitute with this portion right. It's hanging on the fear.
Oh yes, when you have hatred of a facade that you feel is given to you and isn't your own.
You had to take it on the fear.
Yeah.
You hate it, but you have to have it because otherwise you're afraid.
Mm.
When you don't even remember what you're afraid.
This is why the Hindu monk, the man who came to him asking for enlightenment or teaching, the monk asked him if he had followed all the shastras, all the laws, all the rituals, all the duties, responsibilities, right down to the letter. Yes, he had never missed one in his entire life. The monk said, "Can you lie?" And the man was horrified. Of course he can. So lie in his life. It is fine. Go out and learn to lie, and then come back, and perhaps I can help you.
It's like Freud and Anita Luce. No gentleman prefer blondes? Ever read that story? This girl was completely uninhibited. Comes to Freud, and he doesn't know what to do with her. Tells her to go away and get a complex. Yeah.
I wanted to
Yes.
ask whether you could name a mushy spot or two in our civilization.
Yes, I think I can right away. The hipster world. Beatniks, people who are regarded as low, dirty bohemians and scallywags of the earth. Unproductive, weak, every kind of abuse is heaped on these characters. And you should see how, I've been following some studies that have been made of them by sociologists. They are victimized by authority and by the police in a vicious way.
Homosexual would be the worst of it.
Oh, homosexuals, yes, that's another.
Is the world waning?
It stays fairly constant for the time being. I don't think it's waning. But you see, that's something people get real angry about. And you watch, therefore, where this real anger arises.
Well, is it to look for what other people hate or what you?
Oh, both. It's always, I'm talking really, it's about what you hate as well as what society, in a more conventional sense. I mean, if you're an unconventional person, you have funny hates of your own. For example, I mean, I might hate Southern Baptists. So I have to find out what it is about these Southern Baptists, you see, that really storms me. Why? And so sometimes when I'm driving my car alone, no one around to hear, I penetrate why I hate certain kinds of religiousness. And I sing their hymns. Feel what those people are after. And I know that somewhere down there must be a big thing. See that they've got.
There's another point, Alan, that actually, not the point that you're making, but are illustrating, that you can actually only understand this as you no longer hate it.
Yes, that's true. Of course you can. You must eventually come, see, to the great vision that is the basic vision, that all the forms of life, you see, are exultant expressions of the infinite delight of being, of existence itself. And that everything whatsoever expresses this.
I plugged this book.
Yes, that is the joyous
I
concept.
was thinking that all of life is
A game there are many, many senses of game. There are many levels of game. Game may mean something trivial and debonair. It may mean something cat and mouse. It may mean something, on the other hand, it absolutely exultant. It may mean something, you see, game, play. The idea of play can mean, we don't really have ways of talking about this thing. We don't have real good ways of talking about sheer delight. It is uncomplicated and purely exultant. The nearest thing I've read to this recently is a book by Lampedusa, who wrote The Leopard. It's a recent publication. There are 3 stories, I forget what the book's called. And one is about the love affair between a professor of Greek and a mermaid. And it's one of the most enchanting little love stories. Just a very slight thing. But he's created very, very skillfully the atmosphere of a woman who is totally innocent and absolutely wise. Beautifully done.
so in fact,
Well, this is when you crawl down, you see, several levels and get down to the bottom of this thing, you can see that making it all so serious is a special game. I mean, when I mean, let me say what sense I'm using the word game at the moment. Go out into the garden, there's the rose game, you see, there's the hyacinth game, the lily game, the snail game, and all these creatures are playing their special patterns, and they're seeing which pattern wins and has a certain advantage over other patterns, and they're all going like this. And although they're fighting each other, they don't quite know they're maintaining each other too. What's going on? Then you look at people, and it's serious, and that's like kind of fun. It has things going this way.
Does dance say
Charleston, twist, etc. Styles. And you can look at all these styles. You can say, I like roses, but I'm not much of a one for aspidistras. They're both, legitimate forms of plant, and all people and their vagaries begin to appear like this.
well, the Hindus call it the divine Leela,
Yes.
and listing Western book called Humalu.
I see.
Might want to say that.
But isn't the world of high finance a dance too?
Of course.
I mean, the whole
A very tricky one.
about the world is that.
That too. Oh my, you should see it. Oh, it's fun. Yeah,
What about the go to the seminar?
yeah, too, of course. I pretended it was otherwise. It's all right.
but don't we dance beautifully?
There is a saying in Chinese which is very difficult to translate, but the Zen story, that when a man doesn't understand any Buddhism at all, mountains are mountains and waters are waters. Incidentally, mountain water together move landscape. When, however, a little of the doctrine is understood, mountains are no longer mountains, and waters are no longer waters. When one has thoroughly comprehended, mountains are mountains, and waters are waters. So the saying is often written, mountain is mountain, water is water. Hang it up on a hanging scroll. Well, there's another way of saying, which is, mountain gets mountain, water gets water. Gets is a special expression, also mean to attain, achieve.
Arriving at this acceptance of mountains as mountains.
No, now what I want to say here, when the mountain gets the mountain, the marvelous thing about the mountain is it's so much like a mountain.
Much better.
Some mountains are more like mountains than others. Like some rocks you see in gardens are more like rocks than other rocks, you see? And that's what creates good rock farming. They do have rock farming, it's called bonseki in Japan, and you literally grow rocks. They grow in respect of the way moss develops on them and the way they get aged and muddied and so on, and you let it all happen.
So right in the best case of all these guys, the man to be as much a man as he can.
That's right, yes. You see, man gets the man. That's my point, you see. That when we see somebody who we say is a very great type, the perfect gentleman, see, British or Chinese, as the case may be, or perfect Southern colonel, or whatever, you know, we say, now isn't that something? Maybe that's quite horrible sometimes, but there's something about it. There's the way when we see the perfect lion or the perfect cat, the perfect dog, those have these horrible aspects, but there's something we deeply appreciate.
We're aware in our culture, the ladies would excuse me, when a woman is truly a woman.
Yeah.
Isn't that most possible when she's around a man?
Yes, the situation is mutually arising. Yeah.
You might say that was 99% of what gets in the way of always people loving themselves. They don't know whether they're a man or a woman.
Whether it was a male or female
It started there.
components?
I think everybody,
These people sit down and ask themselves, I love myself, do I hate myself, do I love myself? I mean, give me a particular instance, do you do it in the morning? You know, balance, something, what do you mean? Do you really question yourself and say, I hate myself, and I love myself? I don't think you get the point.
Do you ever feel guilty? Have you ever felt guilt?
Yeah. Okay. That's hate, you
Wait.
I mean, I think that we would agree, Lloyd, wouldn't we? That either loving yourself or hating yourself is not something we're discussing as an exercise to be done for 5 minutes a day before. It's a condition that arises from time to time.
As one loves himself, one doesn't
You may
think
be
about it even.
you may be lying awake at night. You may be sitting on a bus. You may be doing any conceivable thing. Your thoughts wander in a certain direction, where you reflect over your past and some area of your life or something you've done that you just can't stand. And how on earth are you to justify it? There's no way of justifying it. Does that mean you're a moral failure and a wreck and so on, and you think these things over? Well, it's exactly at that moment, you see, that we're involved in this sort of problem.
you pose to become better.
Well, I mean, no.
Do you love yourself when you were
No, no, indeed, because this, you see, you're phrasing all this as if there was some method to it.
And you love yourself to the bastard you are.
I don't, that's what I think that, I don't, of course I have, but that's what I'm ashamed of. That I should go back over the past and, it seems to me now repentance to keep starting to something.
But
You
that's
pay,
a form
you
of
go,
self-hate.
that's okay, that's pride now, there's nothing you can do about that.
Yes, that's true, but you see, when you look at this sort of thing from the point of view of the psychotherapist,
Oh,
you look at it from the point of view of somebody who is being asked every day of the week, 9 hours a day, how do I deal with this? And it's natural for anyone, even the most no-method one, to succumb a little bit to the thought that there might be a way of handling it. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm enjoyed speaking from the point of view of a man who grips with this 8 hours a day or 9 hours.
yeah, I have strength.
Well, I've been 8 trumpets.
I suppose there are.
I think that one of the most important steps in therapy is to teach a patient your language so that he can speak to you.
Yeah.
Simply from trying to learn all
You know, to him that hath shall be given. In order to teach him your language, he has to know it already, because he has to know some terms in common with you in which you can explain your language to him.
A little sign that I drag out, seeing couples occasionally. Speak for yourself only if you have restated the words and feelings of the ideas and feeling to the previous speaker to his satisfaction. It's amazing what happens when you drag that up and husband and wife are squabbling.
Any more questions?
Couldn't you say that the ultimate laugh in this game of life comes when you equate yourself with God as a part of God and see that the proof which we believe is set up by God is really set up by us in our cultures?
Oh, it's not that simple. The ultimate
You're
laugh.
making the game harder.
I'm not making it
I
harder.
refuse to accept your premise.
I'm not making it harder. I'm making it deeper. It isn't harder. Now it's something like this. There comes a point, not when you realize that it's just the culture that set us up, but that God, in the sense of something immeasurably further within the heart of electricity than culture, something immeasurably farther out from the furthest galaxies than anything terrestrial, human, historical, that you come to realize that you are the root and ground and origin of this universe in all its incredible vastness, and that almost a moment later a flip occurs, because what the root and ground of this universe is doing is it's imagining itself to be finite and confused existences like you and I. And the moment you get it, it gets you. You see? And you suddenly realize that this thing that goes like that is the pulse of life, it's the heart of the world. And so it keeps it going.
Alan's name is something that seems to be useful to some people. It's what I call the 11th commandment. And I'm convinced that the other 10 are rather sawdust without the 11th. The 11th is simply, thou shalt not take thyself too damn seriously.
Seems to me that to sterilize the whole process. Because by taking yourself seriously, that you come to this sense of crisis. As I see it, it's essential.
Yes, but you see, all commandments are without validity unless the opposite action is possible.
Yes, but even the humor that's so important, and you yourself have stressed it, comes about through a kind of clash of seriousness. And the humor is a piece of truth.
Yes, what is so funny about human beings is precisely that they're serious.
If you were able to eliminate seriousness, it would be no humor.
It's true.
Maybe this is that flip.
It is. It's exactly what I mean by the flip. And it's that flip, that the boom, is why the yang yin symbol is looking like that. The two commas, black and the white, that the Chinese use, is a boom, boom, boom. And that's the flip of the opposites. That's the pulse of life itself.
There'd be no need for the 11th if the first 10 works so seriously.
That's right. You see that you got your. You see, it isn't the number 10, which is a fairly standard number, and it isn't the number 12, which is a fairly solid number. It's this awkward 11 that goes bloop. The same way when the world goes round the sun, the Earth goes round the sun. In a neat 360 days, the world will be going, like a bee round a lamp. But actually, it's 365 and a half days. It isn't on an ellipse, Captain. You see?
How do you know the bee is?
Well, bees are difficult creatures. Theoretically, they can't fly, but they do.
Well, that's their
Maybe just. And that too, you see, that bloop thing is also a surprise. You never know quite when it's going to happen.
So the cosmic birth.
That's right. Or hiccups. See? And there's something about it like it says in the book of Genesis. And the Lord God made great waves. No introduction. And so that it was good. So obviously it wasn't planned beforehand. Because you would have known that it was good anyhow if it planned beforehand. But it done it and then he thought it was good. Well, it's about 10 o'clock, my friends, and I think it's time to call these things to a conclusion, because when the pie is cooked, there's no point cooking it any longer. I want to express a special note of thanks to Lloyd and Joe Grumbles for being our host and hostess and thoroughly putting themselves out. And, good. So, I think there's wine and such things in the dining room, and you'll be most welcome to help yourselves.
How about a
No, he talks about honesty and deepest problem of being the thing you're learning, whatever. For some people, it's unbelievable. The answer to